Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. In today's episode of Friday Morning Ramblings, we'll take a look at my grow light station. I will give you lots of tips on how to start seeds indoors, just talk about what I'm doing. We'll also do a tour. It's 20 degrees outside, so we're going to skip the garden tour, and plus the garden's not growing anything, so it's going to look like it did in the last 3 videos. But I'll give you a tour of my office, the different antique collectible, yeah, easy for me, the different antique collectibles that I grow. But I thought I would start with the scene of the crime. So when I'm, making videos, sometimes I just leave stuff. So in this case, it was a good idea. So this is where I talked about organic seed labels, GMO seed labels. I'll link that video. But I got some backlash because people were really angry that I said organic seeds were bad, that I said don't buy organic seeds, that I said many things which I didn't say. So let's just start. It's probably going to be hard to see, but the title of the video right up there was "Watch this before you buy organic or non-GMO seeds and save some money. What makes a seed organic? Explained." That got changed too, and a lot of times people don't watch the whole video. They just like to attack any of us when we talk about organic in a way they don't like. All I'm saying is that organic seeds and no stamp seeds are no different. The seed itself isn't going to make or break an organic garden. Now, people have said, well, organic means you're buying from the small mom and pop shop. That's not true. These are seeds from a big company. They have organic and non-organic versions of the same exact seed. Organic seeds don't mean you're supporting organic gardeners necessarily. They don't mean that you're supporting the small mom and pop shops. They don't mean that they're better for the environment. Lots of land is clear cut to grow seeds. I agree we should support our mom and pop and smaller seed companies, but the best way to do that is to actually get to know them, contact them, email them, ask them how they grow their seeds. Kind of see what their mission and vision might be. That's how you support somebody. You don't support them by just thinking the label goes directly to them. The thing with seeds is a lot of seeds have been grown organically, like the big company that I just showed you. Those seeds may be exactly the same. Everything is grown organically. Doesn't make sense to really start one side organic, the other side not organic. But when they put the organic stamp on there, they raise the price. They use the same exact seeds from their fields. In the non-organic packs, they charge you less. Just think about it. I don't really care what seed you buy. I just don't want you to be fearful that if you buy something that doesn't have a label, that, it might be wrong. Organic gardening is really about what you do to the soil and how you grow your plants, and what chemical sprays, organic or non-organic, that you put on your plants. That's all I'm trying to kind of impress upon people, is organic gardening is not about buying the label. It's about the practice of how you tend and care for your garden. This is a pretty cool book. Let's see if I can tilt that in there. It says, Chemical Gardening for the Amateur. Now, I collect antique stuff, and when you look in here, this is copyright 1939, and it's a pretty cool book. This is about the time that the chemical fertilizers were starting to be used regularly on farms and in gardens, and they didn't know how to use them. What they did was they really took the chemical processed fertilizers, plants can't tell the difference, and they just dumped them on the ground over and over again, and didn't add compost, didn't take care of the soil. Soil life died out after years of use and abuse of the chemical fertilizers, and plants suffered because they need more than just nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium. You can get all that stuff in these chemical fertilizers, but if you're not taking care of the soil, adding in compost, building up organic matter, taking care of the soil life, your plants are going to suffer. That process of building the soil, taking care of the plants is what organic gardening is all about. It's not the organic label on the seeds. Anyway, that's a ramble, because this is ramblings. Now, some of the things that I really enjoy are trying to figure out, where did all these chemical fertilizers come from? What do they do? And I've shown this before, but these are all anywhere from 30, 40 to maybe 60 years old. And, there's a classic Acme all-around spray, nicotine spray. That's a garden spray that kills sucking insects. Super Thrive, which is still around in modern bottles. Chemical fertilizers, 1 ounce makes 6 gallons. This you could still use, but I'm not going to break open a pack. Something for killing moles. I have lots of soil test kits in here. Chlordane dust, nicotine emulsion, dormant sprays. Here's Gulf Spray, quick action insecticide. That's kind of how chemical fertilizers got tied to petroleum products. Yes, petroleum can be used in making chemical fertilizers and such, but it doesn't mean you're dousing your plants with gasoline or anything like that. All these different chemicals in here that are not good for you or your garden. Some other cool stuff in here, like Red Arrow garden spray, different types of sprays for insects, giving your plants new life, new plant life. I think it's really cool. You can see the history of how chemical fertilizers, chemical products are brought onto the market. They didn't understand them. I'm really big on not using synthetic sprays that kill insects and bugs on your leafy greens or on plants that you're going to eat, because we don't really know what they do. Now, I'm okay with using the chemical fertilizers in the gardens, especially containers. It's not going to hurt you, it's not going to hurt the plants. But if you use and abuse it like they did in the 30s and 40s, or actually really in the 40s and 50s, you're going to screw up your soil life. Lots of compost, lots of organic matter makes a difference. My overwintering peppers, they're doing pretty good. They are starting to flower. People were asking me, are you going to pinch the flowers? I am going to eventually pinch the flowers, but I just want to kind of see what they do. Coming over here, more soil test kits. I think it's really cool. This is something that still plagues us today. Slugs and snails, and that's Corey's. That's a toxic formulation. I think, yeah, that's full too. That's something you wouldn't want to use in your garden. I like using the slug baits that have iron phosphate in it or sulfur in there. They eat the baits. Yeah, they eat the baits, and it shuts down their gut. This is really funny, I think. This is super jet fog for controlling small flying insects. And look at the picture. Happy woman in this case in a stereotypical, I think, 1950s dress, smiling, fogging the yard, and in the back you can see the kids like, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Well, that's not a good idea. But you can see how packaging and labeling affect the buyer. Coming right back to here. Same seeds, one says organic. Right there you can see the stamp, and the others don't. You pay more for them. Now, here's what I'm doing now. It's the middle of January, and a lot of times I get the questions, what do you start? So you can really start anything, but it depends on the timing. If they're going to be growing indoors and you're ready to go outdoors in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, generally speaking, your soil outdoors, the ground soil in your container or earth beds, really has to be about 50 degrees. Cold soil is going to really slow down the growth. You also don't want frost around. A lot of people think, well, it's been in the 50s now. That's true. You don't want the ambient temperatures, the temperatures around the plant, to drop into the 40s and into the 30s and freeze, because it damages a lot of your warm weather crops. However, a tomato that's put out and protected and sits in 40-degree soil temperatures is just not going to thrive or grow. So these are planted way too early. But all these plants down here are the plants that I started early for prop videos. I've been spraying them heavily with hydrogen peroxide. I did a video on that just to look for damage. So these guys are sort of the test guinea pig plants, and they'll be composted shortly. Now what I'm doing over here is I've started some tomato plants. These are the tiny Tims right back there. They're going to be grown inside. Tomatoes, for people aren't really familiar with them, they're self-pollinating. So insects can pollinate a tomato plant, but you don't need insects to pollinate your tomatoes. That's why when you're growing tomato plants and they're close together and you're saving seeds, rarely does a cross-pollination happen, because the flower contains what it needs male and female wise to self-pollinate, and it takes care of business that way, and you get a tomato. So these tomato plants, then we get some bigger ones, some cherry tomatoes. I am going to grow these to a large size, trim back the foliage, but really grow a massive root system, put them into my cold frame, get them into the garden with a really well-established root system, hoping that I get plants that really take off when the temperatures are right, come later April, middle of May around here. So that's an experiment. And then back there I'm doing the same thing with peppers. I'm going to grow them to a very large size indoors, maybe the use of a cold frame. And the reason being is because I'm really focusing, now that my garden's established for 2 years, to really taking kind of the homestead vision and feeding myself, my family, and friends more out of the garden. So I want to get fruits, vegetables earlier, and I want to get them later into the season, if that makes sense. And right over here, there's 2 pepper plants that did not make it. They died for whatever reason. I think out of 14 plants, 12 made it, or out of 12 plants, 10 made it. So some of the tomatoes will go into there, where I'm going to really nurse that root system and get them out into the ground as quick as I can. Again, but it's got to be warmer ground. Putting them out when the ground is cold, they're just not going to grow. Sweet potatoes went in on 12/22. This is the preferred method now. I'll link the video that I did last year on that. No point in redoing the video. I check those. They are rooting from the bottom. Just keep them wet. Moist, actually. Don't soak it down. You don't want soaking starting mix with the sweet potatoes, or they'll tend to rot. They got a little bit of fuzz on the soil. I used the hydrogen peroxide spray that I made up in the last video, and that worked really well, but they're starting to go. Perennial flowers can be done now, the slower growing ones. That's purple cone flower, I think a verbena. Shasta daisies grow really well, and butterfly weed. Now, the reason I start them early is because these 4 plants, well, the 3, the purple cone flower, Shasta daisy, and butterfly weed, are really hardy. So they can overgrow. I overseed them. I can tear the root ball apart, double up the plants, double up a single cell. What am I trying to say? I can grow this nice and large, split it down the middle, double up the amount of plants I have by putting them into 2 separate pots. That was really hard to say. Because they grow so well, I start them early. I have tons of daisies, purple cone flower. They do better with the splitting. Butterfly weed, I mean, if you overseed it, you could split it that way. But they tend to be sometimes a slow grower, so I like putting them into the seed starting mix now. Over here, I'm starting my perennial herbs, sage right in the front, oregano. I'm doing some lemon balm, thyme back there, chives, oregano, peppermint. Over here we have some rosemary. I'm waiting on the lavender. Those plants are good and can really grow indoors. 12 weeks actually. I mean, you just have to up pot them and stuff like that. But the perennial herbs here are winter hardy. So if I put them outside, frost came, roots got cold, they're going to kind of turn purple. They're not going to look great, but they're established from growing them inside. And when the temperatures get to the right temperatures outside, they're going to take off. So you can make all of the oregano, thyme, chive, seed starch you want save yourself a ton of money, because when you go and buy those herbs in containers like this size at stores, they're, you know, $3 or $4. It's costing you pennies to grow them this way. And these are perfect for a plant yard sale. This is also the time I would start them if you're thinking about selling herbs in April and May. So you really want to get them growing. You want them to look healthy. You can overseed, that method I've talked about before. Tear the root ball, plant them up in a couple different pots, and over time you'll have these really nice plants. So come April, May, you can sell. So this is a lot of what I have growing. The last thing, well, up here, let's just show you real quick. These are hot peppers. In the back, onions over there, overseeded. I'll be able to, you know, get about 100 plants out of that. I'll be doing a video on that in a little bit. Actually, here's the setup for that. Those onions, I'm just going to plant them into a flat that looks like this. Show you that in 1 second. More peppers. And I tend to believe that most hot peppers tend to grow more slowly. So I like to start them a good month before I put in the sweet peppers. So if you're, you know, taking notes, February I'll start peppers. Later February, early March I'll start tomatoes. Now up here is ginger, and they were put in on 12/9. It's just a flat sitting on a heat mat seed starting mix. The right side, the ginger was soaked in an aspirin solution because I was reading that aspirin can speed up germination. I've dug these up on this side. I've dug them up on this side. The little sprouts are starting. No difference. So the aspirin thing, I'm not even going to probably do a video on it. It's not worth talking about. But last year, my ginger took a long time to get going. So I decided to just load this up with ginger, start it now. Over the next 12 weeks, I should have plants coming up. I will gently pluck them off, put the roots into this, and I will have my ginger plants established and growing already. Rather than putting in the ginger roots outside, I'll be putting in plants, and that should increase and speed up my ginger production. I'll be doing a video on that when everything is ready. So this is kind of what I'm doing right now, middle of January, to kind of pass the time where there's nothing really more to do out in my gardens. A couple of tips I would now recommend. So right now nothing is germinated on here. The lights don't need to be on technically, but it's best to, you know, maybe let these sit 3 days in the dark because nothing really germinates that fast. And then on the 4th day, get them into your lighting cycle. This can be anywhere from 2 to 4 inches above here depending on the intensity of your lights. But you don't want your seeds to break the surface. You have them sitting in the dark. You're trying to save money. You don't actually save that much money. You miss getting the lights on for 24 hours. Your seeds get too thin, leggy. They've started off poorly. Get them under the lights earlier. And then the other thing that I'm doing now is once these break the surface, once they germinate, I'm actually leaving the lights on 24 hours a day for 3 days. That's just to give them extra light so that they germinate, they stay stocky, they don't overstretch, they don't become leggy. And then after that 3 days, I go into my cycle of lights on and off that I've talked about before. That's probably one of my favorite tips, because you really just want your seed starts to get off on the right foot. So let's spin around. I'll give you a tour through the rest of everything in here. Well, here's kind of what my office looks like. I know I've done a tour before, right out through that window. If this is the first time you've seen my office, there's the gardens. I'm very grateful to have an office right here, have this property, and just be able to look out there. So you'll also see, as we're doing a tour, as I'm doing a tour, like that is the Mystery Machine from Scooby-Doo, for those of you that remember that cartoon from the 60s and 70s. I collect all kinds of different things, stuff that, you know, that I just enjoy and remember as a kid. Oh, here's another thing. I know that I have ads before my videos. I have ads during the videos. I also know that if I say something negative or that's viewed negative about chemical fertilizers or organic gardening, people get angry, they unsubscribe. So if you do like my videos, and my whole goal is just to provide you information, it's not to tell you what to do. If you do like my videos, please subscribe. It does make a difference. I also buy like those core bricks. That's a light right there. That's basically this light that I'm supplementing light with my peppers with. I buy a lot of stuff that I don't use. A couple more lights that I'm not using for the video. So if you do have a second, I know we're all busy and the ads are annoying, but if you could watch them, it does help out. It gives me money to do the different things that I do in the videos. Star Wars figures, love science fiction. If you are, now all these books, take a look at that. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You might think that was $200, $300, $400 worth of books. That probably cost me $20. Go to thrift stores. You can find, it's a lot of fun too, you can find all kinds of gardening books. Well, I do recommend not getting this one at a thrift store. That's Kelly Kim's book. It's a great book if you want to help support her. You can find all these books really from anywhere from 50 cents to about $2.50 a book, and it's really worth going. All the different prop products, I use fish emulsion mostly in here. I will use the chemical fertilizers. Now I've just lost a couple of subscribers, but that's the fish emulsion recipe that I use for my seed starts. You just want a little bit of NP and K no matter what you use, and that's the hydrogen peroxide spray that I'm using to manage surface fungus, and if fungus gnats come, I'll use it on them. That can help kill them off. But the best method for fungus gnats is to really take your bag of seed starting mix and hydrate it with boiling water. This is an antique sprayer in there. I think that's pretty cool. Some of the products that I sell, this is no longer being sold. I'll talk about that in a second. But I have coffee mugs, little journals and stuff like that. More action figures. This is an antique seeder, which I think is pretty cool. Like collecting old hand tools, seed packets, just stuff that I find just kind of fun. I think these are pretty cool. These are tomato seeds, I think from the 70s, maybe early 80s, when Cabbage Patch Kids were really popular. These are probably viable. I might just do a fun video on that. More test kits. I just find that kind of cool. I collect old games. Tobacco cards related to gardening. Just all kinds of different stuff. I like this. This is a can of seeds from, I believe, the 50s. They're probably viable, but I don't want to open it. But it's full of cucumber seeds. Japanese beetle bait, old home and garden sprayer. But you get the idea. Oh, and this is what I was talking about. So these are harvest bags. The bags are perfectly fine, but the printing is all peeling off, and I didn't know that until really about last month after having these for a while. So if you bought this, I apologize. The bag works. If you want to check out the video description, you can find an email address and email us that you bought one, and we can give you like $5 credit or something to a future purchase. And this is the main entranceway. Lots of collectible stuff that I collect. That's something I painted for my son when he was born with my daughter. She was 3, I think, 4 years old. That was like 20 years ago. So I just want to leave you with my thoughts on what organic gardening is. And it's my thoughts. Doesn't mean you have to agree or disagree or whatever. So organic gardening is really about taking local resources, leaves, grass from your yard, from your neighbors, and using them to support your garden. That's what organic gardening started out as, is using what you have locally, before chemicals, before processed organic fertilizers, before anything you could buy with labels. It was using good compost, good practices, and making your own healthy soil. That's all. Organic gardening has been done for centuries by just using compost. Now, if you use compost, great. If you don't have a lot of compost, you have to buy organic fertilizers, that's fine. If you have to use the chemical fertilizers at times, that's fine. Make sure you're building up your soil matter. But you don't have, I don't know why it became a contest that you got to be 100% organic or something's wrong. Not everybody thinks that way, I know. Concentrate your organic gardening on really taking care of your soil life. Build up great soil. Won't matter what kind of seed you buy. You're going to have healthy, strong, productive plants. It's all about healthy soil. Of course, don't go and spray jet fog from the 50s all over your garden. You don't want to eat that. But use any kind of chemicals, organic or processed wisely. Don't use stuff you don't need to use, but just know how it works. Enjoy your gardens. Thanks for letting me ramble. And remember, if you need a little bit of extra money, doing a plant yard sale will give you really $500 to $1,000 pretty easily. Hopefully COVID gets under control. People are getting out more, but you can have a great plant yard sale, make some money, buy stuff for your garden. Thanks for watching, and please check out my seed shop and garden shop at therustedgarden.com.